1, 2, 3, 4. I told you so. I told you. I told you so. I told you. Remember when I told you about 9/11? Remember when I told you about Building 7? Remember when I told you about the fluoride in the water? Yes, I did. Remember when I told you about the New World Order? Remember that? Remember when I told you about the chemtrails in the sky? Remember when I told you that NASA was full of lies? Remember when I told you about the ultra mind control? Well, I just want to say that I told you so, yeah. Remember when I told you about 432 hertz, that is, and what 440 can do to you? It hurts my ears. Remember when I told you about the vaccine agenda? Yes, I did. And that Michelle Obama is a transgender. Yes, he is. The dinosaur fraud, the climate change scam, and yes, Sandra Bullock is also a man. Remember when I told you that there ain't no globe? Well, I just want to say that I told you so. 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 Yeah. Remember when I told you about the TV flicker rate? And how it puts your brain in an alpha state? Remember when I told you about germ theory? Remember when I told you about gravity? Remember that? Remember when I told you about Paul McCartney? Remember when I told you about direct energy? Remember when I told you about Monsanto? Well, I just want to say that I told you so. 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 Yeah. Remember when I told you about the mainstream media? Your so-called celebrities and pedophilia. Remember that? Child trafficking and adrenochrome. Remember when I told you about the Georgia Guidestone? Remember when I told you about the false flag operations? Remember when I told you about 5G radiation? Remember that I told you that? Well, I just want to say that I told you so. 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 Yeah. But you didn't listen. I told you so. I told you so.
I want to begin with a statement from the president, just out now. This is Donald J. Trump on Truth Social, and I'm quoting, It is very important that the drug companies justify the success of their various COVID drugs. Many people think they are a miracle that saved millions of lives. Others disagree. With the CDC now being ripped apart over this question, I want the answer, and I want it now, in all caps. I've been shown information from Pfizer and others. It is extraordinary, but they never seem to show those results to the public. Why not? They go off the next hunt and let everyone rip themselves apart, including Bobby Kennedy Jr. and the CDC, trying to figure out the success or failure of the drug companies' COVID work. They show me great numbers and results, but they don't seem to be showing them to many others. And I want them to show them now to CDC and the public and clear up this mess one way or the other. I hope that Operation Warp Speed was brilliant, as many say it was. If not, we all want to know about it and why. Thank you for your attention to this very important matter, President DJT.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary, and I'm here today with NIH Director Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary. I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today, and most countries have stopped recommending it for children.
We're now one step closer to realizing President Trump's promise to make America healthy again.
Bill Gates, 2015, everyone knows this, spoke that the world population needs to be reduced by 10 to 15% because of global warming through the reduction of the world population through the use of vaccines. Next. In 2020, the same Gates said 7 billion people must be vaccinated. Next. So here's my question. It's a rhetorical question. Why would I take a vaccine for my health, which is financed and produced by someone who wants to decrease the world population?
And welcome back to Steel News, everybody, where we are in the war zone. And yes, the truth still matters and courage is contagious. Today, we're going to step into the legal battlefield where medicine, technology, and warfare converge. We're diving into one of the most consequential legal battles in America, a fight not only for health freedom, but for the very survival of our species. Florida's own Dr. Joseph Sansone, a psychotherapist and constitutional advocate, has done what few have dared. He's filed a landmark case before the Florida First District Court of Appeal, arguing that mRNA nanoparticle injections, the so-called vaccines, well, I'll call them what they are, bioweapons, meet the definition of weapons of mass destruction under Florida Statute 790.166. His filings allege that these injections are not medicine, but bioweapons, a synthetic, self-replicating, gene-altering technology that blurs the line between health, science, and warfare. Supported by affidavits, echocardiograms, and peer-reviewed evidence, Dr. Sansone contends that these injections cause systemic harm, not only to those who take them, but also to others through shedding. Beyond the courtroom, Dr. Sansone has launched a nationwide legislative initiative, the Sansone mRNA Bioweapons Prohibition Act, already introduced in Minnesota and drafted for all 50 states. It's a citizen-led offensive to reclaim lawful medical oversight and accountability and human sovereignty. Joining me this afternoon as co-host is my good friend and colleague, Dr. Jane Ruby. She's a licensed medical professional in internal medicine with a subspecialty in cardiology. Dr. Ruby holds 2 earned doctorates, 2 master's degrees, and a bachelor degree with over 20 years of experience in human research and drug approval processes with the FDA. Her expertise in pharmacology and regulatory science brings essential clarity to this critical discussion. Not to mention, she broke the story that showed that these bioweapons, in fact, are now leaving massive clots, as they exposed in her, previous reporting on a number of different platforms, obviously on her own. And we're going to talk about that with Dr. Sansone. Together, Dr. Ruby and I are going to help unpack Dr. Sansone's filings, where they currently stand. There's some breaking news there, the scientific evidence, and the constitutional framework behind this unprecedented legal stand, one that very well may define the future of medicine, law, and human freedom. First, I want to bring in my co-host and esteemed colleague, Dr. Jane Ruby. Jane, it is great to have you on here. Thank you, as always, for the work that you do. And why can't I get you up here on the stage?
I'm here.
You know how it goes. I really want to thank you because your work has been groundbreaking, and you frankly have opened my eyes to a lot of the nonsense in the medical freedom movement, but more importantly, just how corrupt this government is and how much they've been on offense against we the people and attacking us, and just in the simplicity of trying to live our lives. So thank you for the work that you've done.
My pleasure, Ann. Thanks for having me. It's great to be part of your show because I do watch it.
Likewise, when you need medical updates, you tune into Coffee Chats with Dr. Jane Ruby, or you get her, Dr. Jane Ruby show at night. So, Dr. Jane, very simply, you broke the most important story when it comes to exposing that these really are medical bioweapons. These have been administered as products from the Department of Defense, slapping labels on, using big pharma, financed by the American taxpayer, and really designed to eliminate the species, our species. It's a depopulation agenda. And you brought this to light when you brought on, this, I can't remember his name, the embalmer, Hirschman.
Yep.
And
Hirschman.
You proved that these bioweapons were in fact creating these massive clots. Just walk my audience through that again.
Yeah. And actually, thank you for that, Ann. The interesting part of this is that everything I've reported on, and of course I took a lot of hits from the mainstream media and a lot of accusations about, fake news and all that. But subsequently, everything I've reported on has been corroborated either by the government itself, other scientists, incredible analysts like Catherine Watt and Sasha Latapova and Dr. Michael Yeadon, and the list goes on and on. But for that particular story, by the way, those were not, just for the audience's sake, those were not blood clots. Indeed, this poisonous substance does create structures and reactions in the immune system that create blood clots. And that's where people are getting their strokes, their heart attacks, things like that. But the clots that Richard Hirschman, as the first embalmer to step forward, the clots that he was pulling, he was having difficulty embalming people. And so he couldn't get into their blood vessels. And what he found was there were blockages. Those blockages turned out to be these white rubbery clots. And eventually, Mike Adams did some due diligence. He's always ready to step up and analyze things when he sees them. And it turns out, apart from whatever you've heard out there, there are a lot of fake experts that claim different things. And I think they're trying to distract from us really finding out what they are. Because if we find out exactly what they are, we could probably get closer to who did it, why they're doing it, and why they're continuing to do it. But the long and the short of it is it's not human tissue. And they're not made of amyloid. They're not, which the body can produce. They're not made of anything like that. They are some kind of a foreign substance, and they have a lot of heavy, dangerous metals in them after the body constructs them with God knows whatever instructions. But interesting story, very quick. It was Dr. Teresa Long, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Teresa Long, one of the 3 DOD whistleblowers, along with, as you know, our dear friend, Dr. Pete Chambers and Sam Sigaloff, who, it was Dr. Teresa Long who brought Mr. Hirschman to me from Alabama, Fort Rucker. And that's where the whole thing began. So I knew it was legitimate because she was bringing it to me, and she wouldn't be, involved in a, conspiracy or and we made world history by reporting on that story.
That's right. And for that, we are forever grateful for that work, because frankly, before we were just going down the path of, the government, why would they really want to kill so many people? And whether they wanted to or not, we can debate that all day long. The fact of the matter is this bioweapon has killed and murdered millions of people and left millions very severely vaccine injured. Those cases are still ongoing. I'd like to bring in, since we are co-hosting this together, Jane, and again, I appreciate you joining me at the last minute because your medical expertise is unmatched. We're going to be joined with Dr. Sansone. Dr. Sansone has filed what I consider to be a landmark case, declaring these bioweapons. And there's some breaking news on that. We're going to get the update on his case and what just recently came across his desk regarding the case. But then I want to, steer this into the fact that, he's taking this in all 50 states very seriously. And Minnesota, believe it or not, Minnesota of all states has stepped up to the plate big time. So let me bring in Dr. Sansone right now. Dr. Sansone, it is great to have you back on Steel News again. And for those that are new to your work in my audience, can you just kind of give us a brief summary of your case before the Florida First DCA and what exactly you were asking the court to do before you got this breaking news today?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Ann, and nice to finally meet you, Dr. Ruby.
Same here. Yeah, same here, Dr. Sansone.
Thanks. So I filed this case on December 1st of 2024. It's actually my second case. I won't get into the whole background because I've been kind of started this whole journey in May of 2021, to be honest with you. But I filed this case on December 1st. What I'm arguing in my case is that my congestive heart failure that I had on April 1st of 2023, and I had a triple bypass surgery on the April 10th, my ejection fraction was 15 when they cracked me open. I know Dr. Ruby knows what that means. I'm arguing that is the result of the shedding or transmission of the technology that's in these shots. And so what I argue, and I argue that in my case, and I was actually compiling affidavits when the case got dismissed. I think I was about ready to get one from Dr. Thorpe. I had like 9 affidavits in there, which again, I always point out, an affidavit from Dr. Francis Boyle, the law professor that wrote the bioweapons law, said that these are bioweapons. So you would think that would mean something. So the case got dismissed. I filed a motion for rehearing, which got denied. And in my motion for rehearing, what I did is I brought up the Florida Civil Rights Act because I'm saying, look, I don't even have to prove that I was injured here. The fact that I have this serious heart condition means that I have a right to public accommodation with a reasonable degree of safety. And if you keep putting these injections out there, I don't have that reasonable degree of safety. And as a matter of fact, I had my ejection fraction went up in end of January up to about 35 to 40%. So it's improved dramatically. But just a couple of weeks ago, I had it done again, and it's back down to 15 to 20%. I would argue that's from the shedding. But the case got dismissed. I filed my notice of appeal, and I'm appealing on 8 issues. One of them was a very clear issue, and the court dismissed my case before I got a summons from the clerk of the court and could serve it on the defendants. And that's a clear procedural error. And the First District Court of Appeal even had a case in February saying this basically. So like, I feel I should have won clearly on that procedural error, let alone the other errors that I'm saying the court did. And there's like 8 of them there. What you're looking at there, what you just shared there, is that's what's breaking today is the First District Court of Appeal PCA'd it. In Florida, it's called per curiam affirmed. What it is it's a way for the appellate court to affirm the lower court's decision, but they don't actually write a decision, and that blocks you from appealing it to the state Supreme Court. What they're basically saying there is that an order dismissing a complaint without precedence to amend an order is final. It's not ordinarily a final appealable order. So they're saying that I couldn't appeal because of that. So I need to look into this case law. I might end up just going back and amending my initial complaint if I'm understanding that properly, but I need to look in this case law. But I'm just telling you straight out that there's a very clear case law coming from February from this appellate court where it very clearly states that the court can't dismiss a case prior to notice being served. And the court in this instance dismissed the case before I even got a summons from the clerk of the court. And it's clear, to me, it's a clear procedural error. So, I mean, it depends.
Or intentional. And Jane will remember this, that, Attorney Todd Callender had an incredible case, questioning whether or not first of all, that the bioweapon injections changed your DNA and are you still human? And second of all, based on the Myriad Genetics case 9-0 in the Supreme Court, if you change somebody's DNA, you actually own them. So whoever the manufacturer of the bioweapon was, if your DNA has been changed from it, which we know it does, are you property of Pfizer, Moderna, or whatever, J&J? It doesn't matter. And the court would not answer the question, similar to what they did here to you in Florida, which I find shocking. So in this case, Dr. Sansone, you cited Florida Statute 790166, the law governing weapons of mass destruction, in your complaint. I want both of you all to answer this. And Jane, I know you got questions to ask here, but how does this statute apply to mRNA technology?
Well, I make the argument that the mRNA technology is a weapon of mass destruction, but Dr. Boyle's affidavit is one of my pieces of evidence I put in there. But I have a lot of evidence in the supplemental authorities that I put in at the appellate court level. I mean, I have a statement from the Surgeon General of Florida in his official capacity stating that the COVID mRNA injections are a poison. Now, if that is literally in there, if you look up the poisonous, uses the term poisonous to describe biological and chemical agents and so on. So that's literally the legal definition. I also filed Secretary Kennedy's statement in his official capacity and the press release and his video, where he's saying that basically there's no prophylactic effect and the risks outweigh the benefits. That's an admission for the United States of America's Department of Health and Human Services, saying these don't work and there's no prophylactic effect. The risks outweigh the benefits. And I'm arguing basically at a minimum from that point forward, that shows criminal intent by keeping these on the market. Now, what I argue in general in my case is, I showed the shots harm. I mean, I have an 80-page brief there. I said a lot of studies. I showed that the shots harm people, disease, disability, and death, and so on. I talk about the shedding and the nanotech a little bit, but and the spike protein and all that. But what I argue is that once you knew, now we know from the Kansas versus Pfizer case that as early as December of 2020, we know this was pre-planned, but your typical deep state bureaucrat, as early as December of 2020, they knew these shots were harmful and they kept pushing it out there. Again, that shows the knowingness level of intent, and so that's what I'm arguing is generally speaking in the case. And I think that, what's happening here is I've actually had zero due process because I'm literally coming with a very serious heart condition. Literally, I could drop dead at any minute. Like, that's how serious my heart condition is. And I'm not getting a hearing, nothing. And so this is a complete denial of due process. And so I'm unhappy with this decision. I'm not sure how I'm going to proceed, because I might just go back to that circuit court and amend my brief and put all the new evidence that I put in there, if that's what they're telling me I need to do. So that's unfortunately, that's not good breaking news. But it's not going to stop me. I mean, like you said, I have my bill that's been introduced in Minnesota. I'm trying to find someone with a spine here in Florida to introduce it, and other states. It's difficult because most people are cowards, corrupt, they're out of touch. But yeah, it's where we're at.
Okay. Dr. Ruby, take it away. I know you've got a plethora of questions here. Jane, I think you're on mute.
Unplugged?
I think she is somehow. There you are.
Unmute. It's like, are you plugged in? When you plug it in. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. You're okay now?
Yeah. You're great.
So Dr. Sansone, the case is so full of passion. I understand it. I didn't realize prior to meeting you that you had been injured by this as well. One of my questions, because you're so well read in this, it harkens back to what we learned from the Brooke Jackson whistleblower case, when the motion to dismiss filed by Pfizer, the argument was, hey, judge, we weren't making a pharmaceutical, we were making a military prototype. Isn't that part of an admission on the part of and by the way, they confirmed that they were working with the government, right? Because the US government filed an amicus brief in support of Pfizer's argument. So here we're saying Pfizer and the government are saying we worked together to make a military prototype that we forced on everybody, right? What were your thoughts on, did you use any of that? Did it help your case? would it help your case because it just gets it more into a bioweapon, department?
So some of my affidavits talk about the DARPA stuff. I did not, in my case itself, in my initial complaint, my appellate brief, I don't go too heavy into that because I don't want to. It's a state court, and I don't want to spook them and have them pass it off and say, "Well, this is a defense issue." And so I kept it more to the nuts and bolts of this is causing harm. You know it's causing harm. You continue to put it out there. It meets the legal criteria. Look, Boyle's argument. I mean, and Dr. Boyle said this in December of 2020. I knew it was a bioweapon back then with just knowing what was going on without knowing any of the medical or technical stuff, because I knew when the shots came out, like a lot of people were expecting them to come out with a vaccine. When COVID came out, we were expecting them to come out with a vaccine. But Boyle argues basically that, like, look, okay, COVID was, a gain of function offensive biowarfare weapon. This is the shots are a derivative of that. That makes it a bioweapon. I mean, he talks about the nanotech and stuff too, but that's a very basic argument he's making there. And so, no, I didn't go too much into the DARPA case. Now, my case is different because the defendant is not the pharmaceutical companies. I was suing the governor and the attorney general.
Okay.
Because I'm just seeking injunctive relief. I wasn't seeking monetary relief or anything like that.
Okay, I see.
Part of what I'm arguing, Dr. Ruby, is that our weapons of mass destruction law is essentially also a public health law. And because of that, if people are being harmed and injured, you need to do something about it.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you about was how did you navigate around or with or through, the whole notion that technically speaking, these shots are not vaccines. I don't care how much they twist the definition, they clearly are, as pointed out in the FDA guidance for industry documents that they send to the pharma companies. There are a number of them that call these things what they are, which is gene modification therapy or gene therapy, meaning that they're doing something to the genes. They're not a vaccine in terms of mechanism of action, construction. How did that help? Did you not use it? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I used a lot of stuff even in my original complaint. I have statements, official health bulletins, because I get them on my email like you do from the Florida Department of Health, and I have official health bulletins saying these mRNA injections are not safe for humans and a potential threat to the human genome. So I have plenty of evidence there. It's just that I'm not being allowed to even discuss the evidence. That's the problem I'm running into here. I like in both of the cases, I went right after. I use the word injection most of the time because I don't even use the word vaccine because they're injection, they're a weapon. And so, I went right after the fact that this is a weapon because I'm going to tell you right now, like, I think once you frame this is why nobody wants to talk about the fact that this is a weapon. Once you frame this as a weapon, I think all these liability shields go out the window. And I know people disagree with me, but I don't think the PrEP Act applies to bioweapons. I don't think you can have a law that sanctions murder. And I think once you're saying this is a bioweapon, that wouldn't even, now that's only dealing with civil stuff. So that, but, and then even there, if you're going to argue on the PrEP Act, I would argue in the brief that it's unconstitutional because there's a lot of ways to argue that. But it didn't really apply to my case because I'm not suing for money and I'm just seeking injunctive relief from the state.
I see. Okay. Yeah. It's just interesting, right? And you mentioned the PrEP Act, which is, to me, a license to murder. That's what it really boils down to. But I get what you're saying. Actually, it's a benefit to separate, what you're talking about from.
I know some people disagree with me on that, but other people I know that are pretty sharp do agree with me too.
I agree with you. I do agree with you. I don't.
Bioweapon. I don't see how that applies because then you're saying you have a law. That's like having a real estate contract that's blatantly illegal, and so you can't have a law that's sanctioning murder. And you'd have to, you can't say the intent now may have been the intent, but so I think that's why they don't want this bioweapon argument put in front of any court because it's really indefensible. You can't defend against it because there's no liability shields in my view.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree with you and I support you in that because there's nothing therapeutic about it. And the PrEP Act should only be focusing on, if it's worthy at all, on therapeutics. So I think you're on solid ground, but I'm not a legal expert.
Think about this too, Dr. Ruby. I'm using the state of Florida's official bulletins and the Department of Health and Human Services statements to say that these shots don't work and they're harming people.
Sure. That's very smart, Dr. Sansone. As you know, using their own words,
It's not too difficult these days because they're putting it out there, and it's, I mean, they are. The devil's always going to tell you what they're going to do, and they're telling us, and they have been telling us for some time. So we've got to get a little bit smarter. And as someone who takes sovereignty and personal freedoms very seriously, and I've exercised that in a number of ways, and I've discussed it over the years on my own show and on other people's shows. You've got to look at what sovereign nations are doing, and one of the sovereign nations, which is the indigenous. There's the Alliance of Indigenous Nations that have come together and formed a tribunal that recently declared these mRNA injections to be biological and technological weapons of mass destruction. Dr. Sansone, from where you're sitting, what is the significance of that ruling, and how do you see it influencing U.S. courts or legislatures, even in the shadow of what you just got handed back to you today, which is the Florida Circuit Court saying, we're not even going to discuss this?
Well, first I got to give a shout out to Lisa Marone, because that was really her idea, and I mean I supported her on her and shared my case information for them to do that. I actually filed that order as a supplemental authority in my case. I don't know yet. I think what needs to happen is hopefully more indigenous nations will sign on to this because we need to get some momentum somewhere. But I think this is significant because this is the first governing body and judicial authority to make such a declaration and makes it, the issue such an order saying it's a bioweapon. And I think that is significant. It just needs to be built on. We need other indigenous nations to jump on board that. And honestly, one of my frustrations here, and part of it's because of the censorship, because even the alternate media censors like a lot of this stuff, because it's like there should be cases all over the place. Think back to the Black civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. They were relentlessly filing cases. So right now, rich people, poor people, Republicans, independents, Democrats, white people, black people, and everyone in between have been targeted for destruction. Most people you and I know will die because of these shots. They will have a shortened lifespan. I'm not saying they're going to die tomorrow, but if you look at the preliminary data coming out of Dr. Vila's research, which was in that recent study, which was another case I filed, which was another supplement I filed, COVID-19 harms and damages and non-exhaustive conclusions, it's at all. And that study says it violated the Biological Weapons Convention. And but they talk a little bit about Dr. Vila's preliminary data, and and I know both of you know the Villages here in Florida. It's the largest senior community in America, and she's got like 4,000 patients there. And the data that she's seen there, and somebody you probably want to interview as well, because I've interviewed her a couple of times, Dr. Vila, and she's basically saying that most of these people have damaged immune systems, basically VAIDS. VAIDS,
vaccine acquired immunodeficiency.
Yeah, even if they're asymptomatic, it's showing up on the blood work, and this is real world data. This isn't like conceptual. This is now her base might be a little skewed because it's an older population, but I think that's gonna. But the bottom line is you don't even need to have a medical background or a scientific background, to realize that if you're giving people chronic diseases and illnesses, you are shortening their lifespans. And if you're a 35-year-old that got this shot and you live to be 62 or 63 instead of 80, they just stole 17 or 18 years of your life. That is murder. And so, birth rates are declining, as you guys know. Infant mortality is going up, and you're shortening lifespans. This is all about depopulation, technocratic slavery, and transhumanism. That's what this is all about.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. Dr. Sansone, I just had a quick question. In the process,
I don't know. I'll make something up, Dr. Ruby.
What's that?
I said, I don't know, but I'll make something up.
That's okay. Did you have any opportunity through this whole thing to or could you, through discovery, or especially because you got this case going, to require or request maybe that either the state, who I understand you're bringing this against, maybe indirectly the pharma companies disclose what people got? Because remember, Pfizer negotiated a 50% non-disclosure leeway for themselves with the EMA, and then it trickled over to the FDA so that they don't have to, they can change it up at any time. They definitely had different things, even within the same lot number, that was borne out by Craig Parducooper, Dr. Michael Yeadon, Sasha Latipova, in their How Bad Is My Batch project. They were the first to break through that. But were you able to get any information that you couldn't have gotten before you filed your case?
In my first case, the governor and attorney general did do an answer brief at the appellate court. So people don't realize this. DeSantis argued to keep the shots on the market in my first case. It's like we're in an alternate universe or something.
Wow.
But no, I didn't, because what happened here is I filed my case. It got dismissed. And then at the appellate court, the governor, the attorney for the governor and attorney general filed a notice that they wouldn't be filing an answer brief because they never were served a summons. They were never served a summons because the court dismissed the case before I got a summons from the clerk of the court. So, I honestly was risky on their part, because all of my supplemental authorities, there was nobody to object to. So I'm putting all this stuff in the record. No, unfortunately, I didn't get to that point. My next move would have been if I did get this reversed and remanded, which honestly it should have been based on that procedural issue, let alone the other issues that I brought up. If it did get reversed and remanded, I would have did a motion for a preliminary injunction and an evidentiary hearing, and then presented evidence of witnesses. But I unfortunately I'm not there, so I still have to kind of figure out where to go from here, because I might be able to go back to the first court and amend my brief.
Dr. Sansone, I mean, Bobby Kennedy is on the record numerous times in interviews before he ran for president, before he went into the administration, but clearly calling this out as a military operation.
Now, Dr. Ruby, I think that someone should really introduce RFK Jr. to that guy that wrote the book, The Real Anthony Fauci. I don't know. They should get together.
Bingo, Dr. Sansone.
RFK Jr. is running a classic limited hangout, right? So they're admitting the problem, and then they're turning around and say, we're going to have double-blind controlled placebo studies. BS. He knows they're a bioweapon. Trump knows they're a bioweapon. Here's the thing that really gets me is President Trump could stop this with an executive order. Under 18 U.S.C. 175, Chapter 10, biological weapons, Attorney General Pam Bondi could seek an injunction. RFK Jr. can stop this. He can direct. Kathleen Sebelius did it. She directed the FDA commissioner with contraceptives back in like 2011 and 2012. If the FDA commissioner doesn't want to take them off, the RFK Jr. could direct them to revoke the biologics license. And any governor can stop these. Just look at your state weapons of mass destruction law or bioweapons law and enforce it. So this is like a mass hypnosis that's going on with people, where they're just not recognizing that their friends and family members are being raped repeatedly.
Well, Dr. Sansone, if you haven't already read the opus of Catherine Watt called The American Domestic Bioterrorism Program, and the subtitle is The Case for going after every president, every Congress, every secretary for treason, she actually unearths how, you look at a law like this, prohibitions with respect to biological weapons, but what they do is this is what happened with the chemtrails, state by state ban. They carve out at the federal level in the U.S. code, they carve out exceptions that don't even sound like exceptions. And I think that's what you're kind of up against here, where you've got So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, nobody has a spine. They're all, like I said, they're all either cowards, corrupt, or out of touch. And look, I know DeSantis isn't out of touch, so he's either coward or corrupt, or both. I mean, because honestly, if I were in Governor DeSantis's position, I would have a constitutional crisis with President Trump, smack him around, and say, you're not going to have this in our state. Throw it out of our state. Let Trump defend mass murder. Because guess what? You can't be America first and look the other way while biological and technological weapons of mass destruction are murdering our people.
That's
this
right.
Is evil. It is sadistic. And I'm not supporting any of these people at this point, because they're all wrong.
I support everything you just said, Dr. Sansone. You're 100% right in my book.
Dr. Sansone, Minnesota has already introduced your bill. What has been the response from other state legislators, media, the public? Have you gotten sort of like a hip hip hooray, or is it falling on deaf ears at this point?
It's the alternative media. I don't know if it's some of it, if it's controlled, or if it's just they're afraid of being canceled, or a combination, because there should be more. Honestly, my case should have got more attention. But I mean, this bill was introduced in Minnesota. I do have another state where a rep has told me they will introduce. I don't want to say it because I don't want anybody to try to scare them. But it's hard finding people that are willing to, put their neck on the line and do it. I'm hopeful of one or two other states where I might get introduced. Remember, we have part-time legislatures at the state level, so a lot of them won't be coming back into session until the next couple of months. Like they were off for the summer, most of the states. We have like 8 or 10 full-time legislatures, and most of them are blue states. But the thing is with this bill is I'm trying to get introduced everywhere because there's a cumulative effect. Look, there's a reason why down here in Lee or Collier County, they've got like the transgender people coming here and doing their little marches and stuff. Like nobody supports that here. Nobody even remotely support. The purpose of doing that is to push the needle to move the agenda.
Right.
And so like getting this bill introduced in California would be fantastic. So if you're in a blue state and you can get this introduced, and quite honestly, some of the blue states, you might have some luck there because they don't really care what the governor thinks because it's not their party. And so we just need to get this introduced in as many places as possible to move the Overton window to push. I believe in maximum pressure. And I don't think it's one of my disappointments here is because I do not understand why cases like mine aren't being filed all over the place. I just don't get it.
So what you're advocating is for a best defense really is a strong offense, getting everyday people basically to take action. I know what Jill and Scott Kiley have done down in Collier County. I reference them all the time. They got the Bill of Rights Sanctuary County passed down there in Naples so that the federal government, the WHO, the UN couldn't enforce masks or shots or any of that nonsense. But they're a rare breed. Not everybody will step up to the plate.
And honestly, even that ended up being toothless because they put in a little clause in there in order to get it approved, saying that as long as it didn't violate state law and that kind of thing. So if the state wanted to do it, they could still do it. So we're up against a lot because they do. No, I'm not. They didn't do it, but the people when they finally passed it did it. The thing is to me, mandates is a bit of a psyop.
Right.
Right. So I look at it because, I specialize in clinical hypnosis. So it's like there's an embedded Ericksonian hypnotic command in there. It's okay to hit us with bioweapons if you're debating whether you should mandate these or not. That's mind control, like in a very basic way. And it's just we just had a whole presidential election where nobody talked about the shots. That is an indirect hypnotic suggestion. Okay.
Right.
We're moving on. That's very powerful because the thing about an indirect suggestion is you don't have any conscious resistance to it. You don't realize it's being done.
It's not working out with the Epstein subject matter. That's for sure.
No. And I mean, and honestly, they're looking guiltier and guiltier by the day because it's like, you're saying you're campaigning on releasing the Epstein files. Then you're saying they're a hoax and so on. It's just I'm very disappointed. I mean, look, I had open eyes with President Trump. I literally wrote an article saying I'm voting for him because the other side is going to kill us more quickly, but I think total disappointment from my view.
Dr. Sansone, you just made an incredibly powerful point. And you just, it's always been a craw on my side about mandate. Well, he didn't mandate it. Well, it's mandated. Should we mandate it? You're right. If you go into the mandate, not mandate argument, you are actually saying, well, it's okay to keep the shots in existence, but we're going to just don't mandate it. And no, it's not. The whole thing should be removed and destroyed.
That's why, I started in May of 2021. It took me about 18 months to get that first ban to jab resolution passed. That's why I did that, because I'm like, we're never going to win if we're discussing mandates. First of all, if you make the discussion about whether it's a bioweapon or not, you'll never have to worry about them mandating it.
Right.
So that alone makes it worth it. But if you let them frame it, it's a double bind. They do this all the time. They create this false dichotomy. So you got to be an A or B when there's a whole alphabet out there.
Very smart.
It's a technique to manipulate and control. Unfortunately, it's just up what we're up against. It's frustrating at times. I mean, I just believe in maximum pressure, Dr. Ruby. I just don't. I mean, look, I don't like necessarily attack people and stuff like that, but I see what people are doing. I just keep doing my thing, and hopefully people do the same thing. I mean, look, I'm a psychotherapist. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a scientist, but I can, I'm a man. I'm not going to allow you to do this to our people. And I think men and women need to stand up. I mean, you're going to die. Get over it. The question you got to ask yourself is, do you want to grovel on your knees like a coward? Or stand up like a man or woman and fight for your liberty and our species? This is a potential risk to our species, as you very well know.
Absolutely. And, Anne, with her very great relationship with Dr. Zelenko, and we all revered him. She had him in the beginning of the show. One of his most stellar, mottos was, and I'd say, but what about this and what about that? And I'm afraid. And he'd say to me, Jane, I'd rather die standing than live on my knees. And that's really right. What you just described. So that's what fuels you.
Well, I mean, looking at it from the point of view of eternity, we're already dead and we're just remembering this conversation. So what's the difference? I mean, the fear, look, if you think about it, unless you're being chased by the tiger, fear most of the time is a false god that you're worshiping. It doesn't protect you. Worrying about paying that bill tomorrow isn't going to make you pay that bill. Worrying about what's going to happen, it doesn't in any way. But you it's like you're giving an emotional sacrifice to this false god as if it's going to protect you.
Right. Yeah. Right. You're allowing yourself to live in the head of a false god of fear. And actually you're allowing to pay, you're living rent free, or should I say they're living rent free in your head, just through the fear porn. And that is what I think has set us back on our heels. And Dr. Ruby made a great point. The fact that it's not mandated still allows you to believe, well, it's okay that we still have the shots. And it completely ignores the argument that you're making that, yes, these things are bioweapons. They meet the definition on the federal statute and on the state statutes and in all 50 state statutes, which is why Minnesota shockingly has adopted this. But, unshockingly, Dr. Latipo has some sense in him and is at least, protecting, the children here from, being forced to take these god awful things. But he needs to, and he's talking about these things should be outlawed. He's talking about how deadly these are. And frankly, he should be the Surgeon General for the United States. He'd be a lot better than what we've got right now, because it looks like, as you said, Bobby Kennedy needs to read the book, Who's the Real Anthony Fauci, and get acquainted with that RFK, because we've lost the plot in a major way. Everything that Maha set out to do seemingly is backfiring. And a lot of the people that I know in the Maha movement that I've spoken to recently are disillusioned at best. Angry, very angry at the worst, and they just can't understand what the hell is going on in DC. It's like somebody goes up there, drinks water, and they completely change. They're not the same people.
Well,
so
I think in the future, like when the pendulum does turn the other way, I mean, RFK Jr. is an easy person to prosecute because he established criminal intent.
Amen.
Wow, that's a point.
Amen. I'll be right there with you, Dr. Sansone.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's people that should be prosecuted, but they didn't say what he said. He's saying there, and he has the power to pull the shots. He can pull the biologics license.
Right. That combination of saying what he said and holding the power, people don't understand how powerful HHS secretary is. It's such a big umbrella. It's NIH with hundreds of institutes. It's FDA. It's CDC, CMS. It's $3 trillion.
Social Security Administration that pays, and Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff. It's what
Dr. Sansone is right. Yeah, he has the power.
I don't know if he's being blackmailed or intimidated, but
doesn't matter, Dr. Sansone.
If you're not willing to be killed, don't take that job.
Thank you. That's what I always say.
Dr. Sansone. Yep. That's been my whole position. Don't, when people have used that excuse, well, he's probably being blackmailed. First of all, we know everything about him. 14-year junkie who's running the major health organization for the United States. Go figure. But a 14-year
with Epstein, so there's probably some sexual blackmail or something going on.
Yeah, but even so, like you said it. Dr. Sansone, you said it. You hit the nail on the head. You said, don't do it. If you don't have the courage to do the right thing, then don't get in there. But he got in there, talked his wife into it, and said, you know what? I gotta have the fame and fortune because I got to get out of the black sheep suit in my family.
I think people have to stop giving President Trump a pass.
Amen.
I mean, because you are not America first if you're letting Americans be murdered like this.
How about a self-harm order to your own troops?
The what?
How about issuing a self-harm order to your own troops?
Right.
This is treason on the part of the military leadership and Trump and so many others in the government. And Pete Hegseth.
Honestly, we're seeing the technocracy move forward with this administration. So we're seeing, they're pushing the digital currency. They're trying to do it in a backdoor way, but they're pushing it. They're pushing the surveillance, the biometric. So it's not like anything it's just taking a different form, but it's moving forward. You got Lutnick talking about tokenizing all our federal assets and stuff like that. This is technocracy. This isn't what I voted for.
And Dr. Sansone, I think you would agree, the crime is continuing. Because Albert Bourla promised that the seasonal flu shot would either be in combination with COVID or even as a standalone would be made out of mRNA. And he said it in 2023 and said it would be out by the end of 23. So when they're forcing our troops right now, okay, you'll get an exemption for COVID shot, but you're not going to get it for the seasonal flu. Whoa, wait a minute. You're still poisoning our troops and our citizens.
No, I mean, and there's a lot going on because our electric bills are going up while we're subsidizing the AI to get rid of our jobs. So then we'll need the universal basic income. It's like forced slavery. This is just, but I mean, back to the shops. The bottom line is these people all are empowered to do something about it. They all know about it. And what they're doing is pretending it's not going on. They're being enabled by mass media and alternative media, pretending that this isn't going on. But I don't care how you look at this. Most people are going to die from these injections. They're going to have a shortened lifespan because of these injections. And I don't say that to scare people. I have type 1 diabetes. On average, lifespan is about 15 years less. Add in the heart thing, Dr. Ruby, maybe we'll get through the interview here. But, I don't say that to scare people. This is just common sense. If you're giving people chronic diseases, they're not going to live as long. What are we looking at here, Dr. Ruby?
Oh, this is
I don't
just
know.
Dr.
This is
Ruby's X account. It's explosive.
Anne's rolling it. I'm not, but thank you. But she's highlighting some things I've said. But Dr. Sansone, while she's scrolling through, they have actually admitted that, I mean, the pharma companies, the government, the real truth is that they want us sick. They partly want customers and they partly want to cull the population. And really the gift of COVID, and actually Dr. Zelenko pointed this out to me 3 years ago, the gift of COVID was to pull the veil off, and we're rapidly seeing it. Yes, we'd love to have more people see it, and they are day by day, but wouldn't you agree that we would never have really focused on a lot of this if they hadn't attacked us as a human race?
Yeah, I mean, I've been awake since I was a kid. Like, I mean, I was in the whole Buchanan thing in the 90s, so I've been awake to the New World Order since 1991, at least not the late 80s, but, maybe not all the details that we're seeing. One of the things, though, if you can download a copy of my bill from my website, josephsansone.com, and try to, I have a version for all 50 states there. It's pinned up top with an article. I'm going to War Will You Join Me? So if you're watching right now, this is about action, because nothing gets done if we don't do anything. And so download that bill and pressure your local legislators to introducing it, because this is how we move the needle. We just do it. We don't think about it. We just do it.
Where's your bill on your website?
You're looking right at it. I'm going to war. Will you join me?
Oh, there it is, right in my face. I'm sorry.
Yep. And I also have a copy of Dr. Boyle's. I have PDFs that you can download of all 50 state versions if you scroll down there. And then I have a copy of Dr. Boyle's affidavit, as well as that paper, the scientific journal article saying that it violated the Biological Weapons Convention, to help convince your legislators. But
there's the Boyle affidavit. Yep. Here's the peer-reviewed scientific papers, bills. This is fantastic, Dr. Sansone. Wow.
And so I'm trying to get that. I would love to get that in a half a dozen or more states, or even a dozen or more states, and actually make. My pipe dream is we can get this in enough states and make the midterms about this. Look, so what makes this bill unique is that it's seeking to prohibit the injection. What happens? People were putting forth legislation to stop the shots, and I was getting kind of annoyed because I'm like, they're already illegal. So what this bill is different, because this bill recognizes that they're already illegal according to the state's bioweapon or weapons of mass destruction law, and it creates a criminal penalty for non-enforcement. If you're a government, politician, sheriff, whatever, governor, whatever, it creates a criminal liability for non-enforcement, but it also creates a civil liability for non-enforcement. So you could sue them, because in a criminal law you need a civil cause of action, and so I get it. Because any county, in a state where we have state attorneys here in Florida, but where they have a county a prosecutor with the sheriff, they could get together in Texas or any of these states. All you need is one county to actually enforce the law, and this whole thing would blow up. But we have no constitutional sheriffs, or it would have been done by now. This is all fake.
That was the subject of yesterday's show. It was constitutional sheriffs. I had Sheriff Richard Mack on. It was, and you're absolutely right. Without that, we're dead in the water. We really are dead in the water. But I'm
saying we don't have them because none of them have actually enforced the law. All you need is a sheriff and a county prosecutor. This is Boyle's argument. All you need is a sheriff and a county prosecutor to get together and do it, and this whole house of cards would fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're not wrong on any of that. I'm going to let Jane go ahead, give us your last word, and we'll have Dr. Sansone close, and then I'll bring us home.
Yeah, I share. Thank you, first of all, Anne, for having me and joining, having the honor of talking to Dr. Sansone. I totally agree with him that it's baffling to me that more people aren't engaging, aren't rallying around what he's doing, and more people doing it. I'm not sure what the analysis of that is, except that we have a combination of things going on. We have people that are injured mentally, emotionally, physically. They've lost economically. They've been hurt by the shots. They've lost loved ones. They'll never recover from it. And so there's all that playing into it. And there's a little bit of I would not say a broken spirit, but a really pained and injured spirit. And we need to get that back too. And Dr. Sansone, I wish you all the best. And if I can support you in any way, if I can help get your word out, if there's anything I can do, either let Ann know and we talk often, or let me know directly. And I wish you well in this endeavor. And I hope you live to be 100 years old, as Frank Sinatra once said. And I hope you live to be 100 years old, and may the last voice you hear be mine.
Well, if I drop dead today, I'm okay with it, as long as I know I'm doing what I can to.
We don't want to see that.
Well, but I mean, I'm okay with it, because this is like the right thing to do. This is what people should be doing. The best thing I could say is, don't be such a wuss. Get out there and do it. Just fight back. Again, your family members are basically being raped and murdered here. They're being violated, and they're going to die from these shots. Yeah. What are you going to do? Just pretend it's not happening? That's not going to help in any way. We need to stop the shots to mitigate the damage, and then go after these bastards.
And the fact that they're still injecting people and babies every day is just heartbreaking to me. Nothing has slowed down, but you made that point. So thanks for everything you're doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to be so negative today, but I got bad news from the court.
No. This is the reality of what we're dealing with, Dr. Sansone. Dr. Ruby has been screaming this for years. She was telling me a lot of things. I was like, oh, come on, Jane. And then here I am. I'm like, she was right about everything.
Right about the chems. I'm driving down, and literally on my way down on 75 earlier, I'm looking at this chemtrail, and I watched the jet go by, and I'm watching as I'm driving as it's slowly spreading out.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, the last few years here in Florida, at least in Southwest Florida, we've had these overcast skies a lot. We never had that.
We never did.
Clear blue skies, afternoon thunder shower, cleared right back up.
Yeah, I know. I've lived here pretty much my whole life, and the weather is not what it used to be. It's the last 3 years has been a complete abortion as far as weather.
Let me add that Dr. Sansone, I believe, Ann knows this is another crime. These state by state bans are a crime. It's intentional. The legislators putting them in place, Ileana Garcia, Doug Mastriano, all of you. It's a crime because you are knowingly passing these knowing that the feds have carved out literally a couple hundred exemptions, and they weave them in, and they're in the USC, and that's why nothing changes. And the canary in the mine was the state of Tennessee, the first to have it. But they were writing to me a year or two ago going, Dr. Ruby, we're getting sprayed more than ever, 3 months, 6 months later. And it's just a ploy to get reelected. Same thing Ron Johnson and MTG do with their phony dog and pony hearings up on Capitol Hill for the COVID injured. But it's the same pattern and playbook. So
they need to have, in those bills, they need to have something that forces the grounding of these planes, and forces prosecution.
Well, from where we're sitting at American Made Foundation and American Made Action, we believe that we need to, put our entire state into a trust. I mean, we are a republic. We've been incorporated, and we're operating a corporate entity of the state of Florida, the state of Minnesota, the state of whatever. We've got to restore the actual republic of that state, and that Constitution is a trust indenture for your state. And frankly, the land, the air, and the water should all be protected. We should have informed consent about who's flying through our airs and what they're dropping. And if they're dropping it outside the state and it's blowing in our state, they should be just as liable. And we should be able to use courts of equity and go after them immediately for punitive damages. But right now we go through administrative courts, and they just go on, or they just don't listen to your case as in your situation.
What are we going to do if it's the military and the government doing it?
Well, I would say this. I'm okay with
militia becomes important, isn't it?
I'm okay with states taking action as long as they're willing to have the constitutional crisis with the federal government, because states can nullify federal laws.
What I'm saying, Dr. Sansone, is the states are also the criminals.
Yeah.
We're going to our criminals.
I'm not arguing that. Yeah.
We're going to our oppressors for relief and justice, just like the military guys and girls trying to get back reinstated. They're going to the very people that did this.
I get it. I'm not naive, but I think there are levels of escalation that must be done, and we need to have everybody filing cases, doing that before we get to the next level. Eventually, this could get kinetic, But we have to go through levels of action first. And if we can't even get people to file cases, it'll be like F Troop. You'll turn around, there'll be nobody behind you when you go to battle.
That's right.
Right. F Troop.
Where'd my people go?
I'm old enough to remember that show.
Oh God. All right, guys. I have to let that be the last word because I've got to be somewhere in 5 minutes myself on another show. But it was awesome having you two together. I'm so glad I could bring the two of you together. This was a great conversation. I will make sure the two of you have each other's contact information when we're off air here. So if you'd like to collaborate further, you have the opportunity to do so.
You guys are the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Sansone,
Bye,
thank
Dr.
you. Dr.
Sansone.
Ruby, thank you so much. All right. Well, folks, you heard it from the experts. What we've heard today is more than a legal case. It's truly a moral, and a spiritual call to action. Frankly, Dr. Sansone's courage in challenging the mRNA machine, along with Dr. Jane Ruby, I'd like to see the two of them together marching through the courts because through his nationwide legislative movement and her exposure of everything that's bad with respect to the shots, it reminds us that the fight for truth and human dignity is far from over. Their efforts expose the weaponization of biotechnology and hopefully can restore lawful governance over our health systems, should be reflective in the kind of leadership America so desperately needs. I want to thank Dr. Jane Ruby for lending her decades of medical and scientific expertise to this conversation. Her insight into pharmacology, cardiology, and the FDA process helps us understand just how far the line between medicine and manipulation has been crossed. You can read Dr. Sansone's full filings, affidavits, and state legislator templates on his Substacks at josephsansone.com. He has the Substack Mind, Matters, and Everything Else. And for Steel News, I'm Ann Vandersteel. You all have a great afternoon, and we'll catch you next time when we go live. This election is filled with promises of tax cuts that will go nowhere. But don't let this excess noise blind you to what's really at stake. Your retirement. As economic volatility continues to grow, few are talking about the consequence that could ripple through your retirement savings. Many wealthy investors have started preparing for the shockwave ahead. Have you? If you have $50,000 or more saved for retirement, click the link below or call 1-888-782-9064 and secure your free guide to gold IRAs from Augusta Precious Metals. Again, click the link below or call 1-888-782-9064.